Hey, welcome back to Obscure Undead. I'm Azzy.
And I'm Adam, also known as the Black Rose.
Yeah, guesting with me because we are reviewing Two Witches' latest release, The Undead, their first studio release in 7 years since 2014's, oh gosh, Good Evil. So the album was released June 30th, 2021, but has only very recently been released on streaming platforms. Previously, it was just available by CD. It was released on Deepland Records, which Deepland is a song off of this album. So this is their Brazilian record label. It is 11 tracks of the spookiest goth rock that I have heard in quite a while.
Well, I love the album. You definitely know how much I enjoyed it. We've talked a bit about that. And I do have quite several things to say about it. First of all, I'm just going to get out a couple of things. Now, Two Witches are a niche band. You know, they're not London After Midnight. They're not Even She Passed Away or
No, they're
Twin.
like a 90s goth cult classic, right?
Yes, exactly. I don't believe that this album will be a gateway. I really don't. I mean, it could. I'm not saying that's forbidden, but I don't see that being the album that will get people into the band. I think that the gateway to Two Witch is always going to be, compilations like Bites and Kisses and, those classic tracks. Um, it is a little bit generic. It does have a little bit of the goth cliches. I mean, you can see it in the title, the undead.
I
And
think the whole album is a goth cliche. It's all horror stories.
I agree, and I love it. I love it so much. And my biggest complaint, though, is the marketing, or lack of marketing, rather. The album is still not available on Amazon Prime. I don't think it's on Bandcamp, excuse me, yet. Bloody hiccups. And now it's available on Spotify, but we had to wait, like you said, nearly a year for it to be available. And, for a classic band like Two Witches, that should not have been the case. I think that album should have been available worldwide easily from the get-go. So whoever's in charge of marketing, I definitely think they need to get their ducks in a row, because I was very unhappy. Like I said, that's my biggest complaint. An album like that should not have had to wait a whole year to be heard.
Right, and I do absolutely agree with that. Strictly speaking, I listen to a lot of my music digitally because nothing that I own has a CD player on it anymore. So I'm just sitting here like, I really hope this releases eventually because I really want to listen to it. Reviews that have come out for it have been amazing. Also, it's Two Witches, and you can't go wrong. They have been a massive presence, at least in a lot of my listening, like back in the day, because they were on a lot of mixes that I would get. You would hear a lot of their 90s stuff because they've been around for absolutely forever. Sorry, I got a kitten.
No, yes, I believe they formed in '89, around that time.
87.
'87, yeah, so late '80s.
Yeah, in
And
the whole
so
north of Finland.
yes, so diving deeper into the album, I love the way it opens with how do you pronounce that? It's supposed to be Latin for "to the sword."
Ad Gladium, which is
Yes,
about, feeding people to lions.
yes. Feed the lions. Yes, that was quite a good one. I definitely got into it. And
Mhm.
I do like the new version of The Last Day for a few reasons. One, I like the way the song opens. It opens with this keyboard or electronic, whatever it is. And it reminded me so much of Walk Away by the Sisters of Mercy, the way that opened. I really liked it. And what I love about it so much is it's got some guests from Incubus Succubus, including Candia. She did the vocals, or some of the vocals on that song. Now, that song was initially released, I believe, in the spring of last year, before the album itself was released. And there was a different version, but the album version has the one with the Incubus Succubus members. And I really like it, I really do. Now, I don't know how to say his name properly. Yerki, guess we can go with that. He's got such a unique voice. I've always noticed that since I started listening to him a few years ago. And you can especially notice this dynamic on songs like Bloodlust and Inquisition. You know, the way he sings, he's got a certain whine, for lack of a better word. I like it. I do think it's a niche way of singing. You know, I do think it's an acquired taste. I don't think everyone would like it. I think it's one of those ways of singing or a voice that you're either going to love or hate, and I'm from the sect that loves it.
Yeah, it's like that Batcave era, just gothic whine.
Yes, exactly.
And it's really nice. And you mentioned Incubus Succubus guesting on The Last Day. This whole album is absolutely chock full of guest appearances from Chaos Research, Ariel Maniki and the Black Halos, Vampirian, Jesucrisis, just absolutely jam-packed. I think that at least half of the tracks in this 11-track album have someone guesting either in the writing or vocals or instrumentation.
Yes, I agree. My favorite songs off the album were Deepland, Flowers of Evil, and The Last Day. The Last Day we just talked about. With Deepland there, or Deepland, however you like to say it, there's that violin that's played, I believe, by Lisa Miles.
Yeah, Lisa Miles from Jesucrisis, and it is just
breathtaking.
It's just beautiful stabbing violin sound. It is eerie and bombastic.
Absolutely, it's bloody awesome. And what I also like about Flowers of Evil is the guitar near the beginning reminded me a little bit of Clan of Xymox, and so it had this slight, dark wave touch. I really liked it. Now the whole album for me was a journey. I've listened to it a few times consecutively or chronologically, starting from track 1 right through the end. And here's how I would describe it. It went from traditional second to third wave goth rock, then it stepped a little bit into the territory of gothic metal with songs like Black Moon, The Void Stares Back at You, and Sacrament for 3, as well as Flowers of Evil. Then it exited into some gothic storytelling with a little bit of ambience and perhaps a bit of neoclassical dark wave background with the last 2 songs of Penny Dreadful. So I will get to Penny Dreadful in a second. About those 4 tracks, yes, the guitars definitely got a bit heavier. I've noticed that compared to the beginning of the album. They got a bit heavier, especially the song Sacrament for 3, very goth and roll, as some would call it. And the drums especially, I'm not sure if those were actual drums or drum machines, but they definitely
I believe they're programmed.
Oh really? They definitely sounded more like live drums, so there's a good quality of programs they're using. I was reminded of 2, almost 3 bands with this one. Early 2000s Love Like Blood, and they went into the that experimental gothic metal territory, as well as the gothic metal band Tiamat. They've got quite a lot of songs that sound like this, and the whole atmosphere on The Void Stares Back at You did remind me a little Type the Negative, just the vocal technique and just that atmosphere that was lifting. So it was definitely a shift from the beginning of the album, but an enjoyable one. I quite liked it.
I think that a lot of what you're picking up that you're describing as more metal territory are things that I mostly recognized as like dark ambient, dark atmospheric kind of sounds.
Yes, exactly. And and I quite liked it. I definitely, to me, those 2 parts of the album, well, if we're going to include the last part 3, felt like there were 3 EPs combined into one album. That's how it sounded to me, at least for someone who's listened to it a few times in a row. And I do want to talk a bit about Penny Dreadful. So for those who don't know, Penny Dreadful is a television series. I believe it's American. I haven't actually watched it. I only
I'm not sure. I think you're right that it is an American television series. And the name Penny Dreadful comes from the serialized, just trash pamphlets, leaflet things that would get published during Victorian times and just have, I don't know, the Penny Dreadfuls I know are just like horror stories, so.
Yes. And I quite liked it because, first of all, there was a little bit of background music
Hmm.
I was telling you offline that the this ambience, as you describe it, reminded me of the two bands that I quite like, Dead Can Dance, especially the
Very ambient.
yes, especially the era of Within the Realm of the Dying Sun. That's my favorite album of theirs, actually, and a bit of Midnight Syndicate. It's a bit theatrical, just kind of spooky, lifting up, and then a woman talks about those endless nightmares that she's been having, and someone's in the attic. This someone in the attic gets revisited in part 2, and lots of whispers. Shall I help you to fly, or something like that? And then near the end, there's murder, murder. So it's quite interesting. And then Penny Dreadful Part 2, Ghostly. I forgot what that one's called.
Ghost Story.
That one. Yeah, there's also a man revisiting this attic thing, and he talks about when he was a child, the elders mentioned to him that in generations prior there was a murder or something that took place there, and then he mentions Sweeney Todd, and that was quite interesting. Like the first part, it continues to get very subliminal, very gothic. So that's how I describe the album. Just 90s goth rock.
Oh, I thought you were going to say subliminal.
Well, that too. 90s goth rock goes a bit into gothic metal and ambience territory, and then out it goes with some gothic storytelling and a little bit of ambience, new classical dark wave atmosphere in the background. And overall, yes, it's very cliche, like I said. I can't think of much to say that's unique other than Yerke's voice. I think that if you've been in love with Two Witches for a while, like myself, you will definitely love the album. If you're not as familiar with the band, I would suggest start with the classics. Go back to songs like Requiem, which is my favorite, Vampire Empire, Crimson, and those songs, and work your way forward. But for me, I can't complain about it. The only complaint I've got is the lack of marketing, which we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. So whoever's in charge, if they're watching, please make this album more available. I'd like to have a copy. Even I tried checking on discogs, but they don't ship to Canada. Ridiculous.
I know that I have a slightly different opinion from you on whether or not this would be an accessible album for the band compared to some of their older stuff. I actually think that this is potentially a very accessible album for the band. It has really great energy, especially compared to the 2014 release Good Evil.
Yes.
And I don't know. I maybe I'm speaking from a place where this was kind of a breath of fresh air to hear kind of these 90s goth songs instead of hearing just repetition of the same. They've been made so tired, the 80s Sisters sound.
Yes, sorry, this bloody hiccups came.
Listen to the album, it'll scare the hiccups out of you.
I actually, do see exactly where you're coming from. I think that it also depends on the individual listener, because what's so unique about the goth scene is that there's so many different ears, metaphorically speaking. Some people like yourself lean way more on death rock. Some like myself lean on what we know as trad goth, post-punk and old waves of goth rock. So I think it also depends on the individual and what they typically fancy. Maybe, like you said, maybe a Baby Bat would have a very different perspective. Someone who's getting into goth in 2022 may discover this album and fall in love with it, and encourage them, or it would encourage them to visit the classics. So we never know. We never really know.
Yeah, but I'm sure that there'll be a lot of folks who just like to watch, a lot of true crime and horror stories on Netflix and sit down with this album and go, yes, I am in love. And I do hope that happens. It is a phenomenal album.
Yes.
So my favorite tracks ended up being Ad Gladium, the first track, and also The Void Stares Back at You. I thought that one was really nice, and that one, the lyrics are by Ariel Maniki.
Yes. Yeah, I like the atmosphere on that song. It goes, very ghoulish, very
Yes.
ghostly. Yes. Like I said, I've got no complaints about any of the songs. Literally all of them. I like all of them. Yeah, good job, Two Witches. I follow Two Witches on Instagram, and I also follow their individual accounts. Miss Blueberry's got her account as well that I follow. And I wish more people would follow them and pay attention to their music, see what they're all about. They're one of those bands that I think has a lot to offer, and I can't think of goth rock without Two Witches. I really can't.
Yeah, I do agree, especially just for that 90s era sound. Also, I just realized we never mentioned sort of the lineup that's on this album. It is Yerky Witch and Miss Blueberry, who is keyboards and backing vocals, and Marco Hautamuki, I'm bad at pronunciations, who is guitar, bass, programming, and back vocals. So he's in charge of those drums.
Oh, interesting. Well, he definitely did an amazing job. Superb.
Yeah. So everyone, go listen to it. Tell us what you think. I mean, I know that there's plenty of stuff that I'm just like, I don't like this, and everyone's like, I love it. And there's plenty of stuff where I'm like, I love it. And people are like, nah.
But like earlier, it depends on what side of the scene or the genre, if you will, they come from or gravitate towards.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear everyone's opinions on what you think of this album.
Me too. I would like to know.
All right, and with that, we will leave you with this album. Go listen to it. Links are in the description below, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Bye.
They say